Welcome back to Issues of Faith. We are talking about how comedy and faith interact. We have with us Rik Roberts, who is the founder of School of Laughs comedian, and he's also president of the Christian Comedy Association. So let's say a church had never hired a comedian before. Some poor person is head of a committee that's tasked with bringing in a comedian for the entire congregation, and this person is horrified that they're going to bring in somebody that's going to offend every person they've ever known. So what advice do you have?
Yeah, and that can be a position that people are put in.
Sure.
And similarly in the corporate world, people, event planners are hiring comedians to come in, and their job could be on the line. I mean, it's pretty close. If you bring in the wrong person, you're going to hear about it, and you probably wouldn't want to be on the committee next year, and good luck, you're not going to be anyway.
Yeah, really.
So yeah, if you're a church and you're looking to bring in a comedian, a few things I would definitely recommend. First, I would talk to one of your pastor friends. There's all kinds of pastor retreats, and you have a network of people that you trust. And first ask, have you had comedy? Who did you bring in? What was the response? Was there anything that the comedian said that you wish they didn't say? Just kind of get a barometer for how a specific comedian did in a similar type church. If you're part of the Baptist community, you might ask your Baptist preacher friends. And then I would do a little research. Most comics that are at the level where they can entertain and minister at a church for a solid hour, they're going to have a decent website and some video clips. A lot of them will already have a DVD or something you can watch and see their entire show. But if you just want to get a sample of that, at the Christian Comedy Association conference that we have coming up in June, you can come out to the Sunday night showcase on June 3rd. It's at Oasis Church in Lenox Village, just south of Nashville, off Nolensville Road. And we'll have 12 to 15 Christian comedians going up and doing roughly 7 minutes apiece, so you can get an idea of what they're like. Everybody has a different idea of what would work in their church. You might want a younger comic, you might want an older one, you might want a married comic, whatever it may be. But you'll see like a sampler platter of the types of humor that we can offer, and then you can have a conversation with that comic right there that night if you wanted.
And the humor you offer, is it, what would you say, is it just clean, or is it maybe mainly church-based, like something about Noah, like you said,
right,
or is it just all manner of observations of life?
It can be a broad scope, and one of the debates that never end, there's two debates in comedy that never end. One is, what is clean comedy? Because it's different to everybody based on what your concept of clean is, and what's a Christian comedian? And that's, even for us, people have different opinions of what that is. So to me, a Christian comedian is somebody who not only entertains, but they're either opening the door for conversations about faith, or they're sharing their walk and their struggles in faith to connect with you on that level, not just the comedy level. So, depending on the level of trust, and that's our big theme this year is trust, the level of trust the comic has with their message and what needs to be said, they may have a little deeper, more church-based, it's not even church-based comedy, it's life-based, and how we're unable to do it all by ourselves. I mean, that could be a theme through your act, and you're not doing Noah's Ark jokes and all these different, but you're definitely connecting with somebody on a religious level, and so to me, a Christian comic does that in one way or the other.
How many comedians are there out there that pretty much just go to churches? That's their whole, I mean, I know you do corporate shows and churches, but is there a universe of comedians that just do churches? Yeah,
although in that universe, which I'd say there's probably a good 25, 30 that are in the churches more than anywhere else, and there's more than that are kind of testing it out, but full-time comedians, if you want to say it that way. It's depending on, I kind of lost track of the questions.
How many do you think there are?
Oh yeah.
Is it, 25, 30, or how many, how big is the
I would
group?
say there's a good 25, 30 that are in churches every single weekend, full-time comedians, as many as that. There are some bigger names that are, Shonda Pierce, Anita Renfro, Johnny Wethington, Tim Hawkins, Darren Streblow, Mike Williams. I could probably name 20 that are pretty constantly in there. But most of that group will also do corporate events where maybe the company, like a Chick-fil-A, wants a Christian comedian to be in there, or just a company that wants a clean comic and they can trust a Christian to deliver that.
Right.
And they may ask that Christian comedian not share a whole lot of their faith in the corporate environment, but just deliver a clean show.
And so you're president, as we said, of the Christian Comedy Association. So how did you come to be that?
Yeah.
How long has that even existed, I guess, and what's your journey to that point?
Okay, yeah. It's pretty interesting. The group's been around since 2000. Shonda Pierce, Mike Williams, Justin Fennell, a few other comedians met near Ashland City at a little farm that Shonda had, a couple of log cabins basically, and they just found each other. The internet was starting to evolve. They're like, oh, there's other Christian comedians. We should get together and talk about this, because it's a different kind of journey, a different walk. I didn't get involved until 2008. Shonda had contacted me. She saw that I was teaching comedy classes at Zany's. And she said, could you come down here and teach our Christian comedians the craft of comedy? Because we want these comedians to be as good as anybody that's at a club, so that we're not just brushed away as, oh, they're trying to do comedy. Look how cute they are, you know, little Christian comedians. And that year I went to the conference and taught my class. But I saw the Sunday night showcase. The night I was actually on the showcase. They were nice enough to put me on there so people kind of could see what I did before I taught it to them, I guess. And I was blown away at the quality of the comedians on the show. And I thought, well, if I can help these people get better, I'll do it. And by the end of the conference, I'm like, when's the next one? I can't wait to come and do it again. And I became president, basically. We went to the, I think people think that, you know, it's one of those things you campaign for or whatever. We went to a meeting after one of the conferences 4 years ago. They kind of do a wrap up. I was on the board of directors, and they asked who wanted to be the president, and you know, basically the way we do it, the vice president serves for 2 years under the president, and then you become the president, and then you teach somebody for 2 years. And so the person who, the incoming president wanted to be vice president didn't show up. And when they were talking about, they basically stepped forward if you want to take on the role of VP, and everybody stepped backwards, and there I was, you know, all of a sudden I had a new job, a 4-year commitment, because I didn't move backwards quick enough.
Sometimes you become president because you say, I have an idea. And you're like, okay, sure, great idea. Now you're president.
Yeah, that could be true. And in fact, I wasn't even supposed to be on the board of directors. I had accidentally been copied on an email before the 2008 conference, my first one. I showed up at Shonda's house when they were having the board meeting. It's like, what are you doing here? Wait, stay here, we need somebody. So, but it's been a journey, and I'm super, you know, happy to be part of it and to help. It's great to see the people that have come through. Even since I started in 2008 with the conference, I've been doing comedy for 18 years almost at that point. But to see people in these past 10 years that came in their very first conference just trying to see what it was about, before they even stepped on stage, they wanted to be part of it.
So you've always been clean, and you said, you know, you can debate all that means, but you've corporate shows and that kind of thing. 18 years ago, would you have thought there'd be a Christian comedians conference? 18 years ago, was this even as a market in the way it is now, if that's the right word? But were as many comedians even performing in churches? I mean, how has it changed over 18 years? Yeah,
I would think back then, I mean, growing up, I only heard about Mike Warnicki. You know, he would do these really outlandish stuff, and then he crashed and burned and then came back. So I don't think there were that many comedians out there doing it, although there's several comics that are in the CCA that have been doing it for a while. The early 90s, I wasn't even part of that. I didn't know what was going on. I barely knew about my own comedy, you know. I was just starting to do clubs and things. The evolution of it, though, and the growth of the Christian comedy, and like I said, I don't like to say marketplace, but the opportunities for us to minister through comedy has really grown. And I wish I'd known about it much earlier, because I was hanging out in clubs after the shows, hanging out with people who were not only negative, but a really bad influence. And even though you're in your 20s, you can really be affected by the group of people you're hanging with. Mm-hmm. And I would much rather have found out about the CCA earlier and been part of something bigger with a better purpose earlier.
So what you have is a conference that's coming up. It's coming up in June. Would you have, maybe not, but would you have a minister who would sign up and say, okay, I want to learn how to be funny?
Yeah, we actually have that every year. We have.
So you do? Okay, so that does happen. Yeah. And how does that go?
Well, it goes good because I think it opens their eyes. So the great thing about the CCA to me is even the minister who's never done comedy, and I talked to one last night who's coming, he can't wait to get there. You know, he wants to keep his congregation awake and alert during his sermons, and he's aware that that's a necessity these days.
Absolutely, right.
So just by him walking through the door with the attitude of learning, but sharing what he knows from his perspective. I mean, anybody that comes to the CCA, I always try to say, you know, they always want to get on the showcase at night to show everybody how good they are, and I'm saying that's natural, but temper that thought and come in thinking, how can I serve this community? Because if you can do that, your impact is bigger than just one show or one night at the conference. That preacher that's coming in, he can share in our ministry breakout sessions what ministers and preachers are looking for in a Christian comedian. You know, he's going to give us that side, that perspective. And in return, he can go to the craft sessions where we talk about writing comedy, performing comedy, and pick up some tips that'll work for him. So anybody that comes in, we're always saying, you may not be a full-time Christian comedian now, but what is in your skill set toolbox that can benefit everybody else? We've got people that are great at shooting video, and that's a big part of everything now, is having video online to see. So they come with their cameras and they do mini documentaries on comedians. We've got comedians that do podcasts. They come in and get the word out. All kinds of different options to help serve as well as be served.
I think it's a fascinating discussion, how Christianity, faith in general, and comedy intersect. Thank you for coming on, talking about it. The conference is when? It
starts June 3rd. It's a Sunday night. We'll have a comedy showcase, and you'll come in and see a bunch of Christian comics doing their best 7 or 8 minutes for you. And then we meet as the conference attendees Monday and Tuesday from pretty much 9 to 5 both days and work on our craft.
Thank you very much, Rik Roberts. Thanks to all of you for watching Issues of Faith. Have a great day, everybody.